We're made to move, and our
Yes.
bodies don't really like not moving. They get upset at us. Our bodies within our synovial joints create this fluid. It's like our natural WD-40. It's called synovial fluid.
Okay.
And that is what help lubricates the joint. It also gives the nourishment to the cartilage structures in the joint. And the
Hmm.
only way that happens is through we have to move those joints to
Ah.
bathe that tissue in that synovial fluid.
Pain isn't just about one joint, one injury, or one bad day. It's your body asking for attention, and the right guidance can change everything. Pain isn't just about one joint, one injury, or one bad day. It's your body asking for attention, and the right guidance can change everything. Welcome back to the Optimal Health Guide. I'm Michael, the host, and I'm here with Josh Vance, the Optimal Health Guide. Josh, how are things going for you today?
Oh, it's been a good full day.
Nice. That's really good. Full days are good. Well, today we're going to be talking about something I think is going to relate to quite a few people. Maybe a question to dive into on the front end just to help people explore the content is, have you ever gotten out of bed and felt stiff? Stood up in a chair and thought, oh my goodness, I'm getting old. It didn't used to be like this. A lot of people, I think even including myself before these conversations, Josh, I've just assumed that stiffness is kind of just the price we pay for aging. But I'm hoping that you can really, dial into that. Is it actually true? And what can we do about it? So we're going to talk about the cause of stiffness today, what role aging really plays in that, and what people can do to stay mobile and active for years to come. So before we get into that, though, I do want to remind people we'd love to hear from you. We'd like to know, if today's topic really rings a bell for you and you want to know more about something that gets brought up in the conversation, you can give us feedback at our website, podcast.vancept.com. There's a form there. Submit your questions. Help us to shape future episodes that we dig into. Of course, your help is really, really needed in liking, following, and sharing. If you find any of these conversations helpful, please subscribe, follow, and share. All of that helps us in analytics to get more eyes on this content and more ears on this content. So here we go. Question number one. Josh, is stiffness really just a part of getting older? I mean, I think that's what I've grown up understanding. And I think some version of reality has even echoed that to be true. But I have a feeling you're going to have a contrary perspective on
Well, yes and no. As we do get older, we do tend to get stiffer. Is that completely normal? Well, yes and no. As we age, certainly Mother Nature takes a toll and our joints begin to get some wear and tear, and we can get some stiffness in the joints because of some normal kind of osteoarthritic changes. So, I mean, yes, as we age, we potentially could get stiff, but
it.
yet it's not like I'm getting older, therefore I am stiff. There's a little bit of a difference there. Okay. So we can get stiff because we are aging and different changes that are happening within our body,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily a guaranteed.
Yeah.
And if we do have stiffness, it may or may not be a normal thing that we should have. There are different things that can cause stiffness, which I'm sure we'll talk about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. What about, again, I know we're going to hit on this from a few angles, so let's not, open up the bag too soon, but what kinds of aging stiffness related things do you see patients showing up?
What kinds of aging stiff? I think some of it is just that general, I'm not moving around. Like maybe I went for a long car drive. Heck, I felt it myself. You get out, you've been driving for 3 or 4 hours, and your knee's stiff because you haven't been moving it. Okay. Well, I know better. But of course, if I'm driving, I can't really move my right leg too much. Put it on autopilot for a little bit, move it around, then put it back. So, some normal, but as we do age, we do get some normal arthritic changes. If you were to take an x-ray on someone that's probably 60 years old, even if they didn't have any pain, you're going to probably find some positive degenerative changes.
Mm, okay.
That's just a normal sort of a thing. So that stiffness can be normal. And there's several different things that kind of contribute to that. So did that answer your question there, Michael?
No, I think it did. And again, I think it gives us maybe the right framework to build from, because I think the next question is probably going to tee off of where you were just going. So what is it that actually causes chronic stiffness then? What's going
Okay.
on inside of the body?
Well, chronic stiffness, I would kind of differentiate into a couple different buckets there. We can have chronic stiffness from degenerative changes that happen, but we can also have chronic stiffness due to joint restrictions, okay? Abnormal tightness of the joint capsule, okay? We can have abnormal swelling around a joint, which is going to create stiffness. And then we can have some stiffness on the other hand, more from just kind of those degenerative changes, which is much more simple and easier to manage. And of course, inactivity, we can get a little stiffness from that. And in the same sense, if we do an activity maybe that you're not used to doing, like you go out and do a bunch of gardening on Saturday, it's nice weather and you haven't done it for a while, when you wake up, you might be a little stiff and sore in some of those joints because they're not used to that activity.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's kind of a variety of things that can cause some stiffness. Now, when we're talking about things like swelling, okay, that takes up space in the joint, and that's going to create stiffness just because there's not enough room in there. And so
Mhm.
you get that pressure. And so we get that kind of stiff feeling. That can be helped with a few different things. And then we also have this stiffness maybe from like a frozen joint where the
Yeah.
joint capsule is restricted and inflamed and tight. That's certainly going to cause stiffness in joints.
Okay.
Okay. Of course, with that also we might get secondary issues of muscle tightness around the joint, which can help restrict it.
That's helpful to be able to see, and I think some of them we would have expected on the list. That the surprise one for me, and I guess it's just because of lack of experience, is the joint restriction. So let's make sure that we dig into that as we keep going along. So what about, you've kind of already addressed this, the lack of activity can lead to stiffness, and kind of overdoing it could potentially lead to stiffness on the other side. But why does movement help in this area of stiffness?
Okay, first of all, we're made to move, and our bodies
Yes.
don't really like not moving. They get upset at us, and so they do get a little bit stiff. So, our bodies within our synovial joints create this fluid. It's like our natural WD-40. It's called synovial fluid. And that is what help lubricates the joint. It also gives the nourishment to the cartilage structures in the joint. And the only way that happens is through movement. So we have to move those joints to bathe that tissue in that synovial fluid. Okay, so that motion helps with stiffness simply
Yeah.
because we're bathing all those structures and we're moving the joint. When we don't move a joint, what happens over time, okay, and maybe if you've broken something or been put to resonate with this, the muscles around that and the joint capsule, everything adapts to that. Our bodies adapt to the stresses or lack of stresses that we put on. So if you're immobilized for a period of time, and that could be a few days in a sling or 6 weeks in a cast, that joint, the muscles around it, they're going to adapt. So the muscles that are kind of on slack and are a little overstretched versus the ones that are a little bit shortened, they're going to adapt to that position. And then when you start to move from that, you're going to have some stiffness there. And those muscles have to then change and adapt, just like the joint capsule also is going to have adapted to that.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's an adaptability of our body which can potentially affect that stiffness. And so that movement's going to, and of course, stretching and all those sorts of things in that sort of a situation, going to help with this stiffness. But we definitely need the muscle flexibility. Um,
That's good. I love the way you started it. We're made to move, just simply go in that direction. And then I really like the WD-40 analogy and that synovial fluid. I mean, it reminded me, it wasn't too long ago, our front door was creaking and, we just simply applied that WD-40 and then, moved it around a little bit, let that go in there and it's not making the sound anymore. And so that's a great analogy. Hey, if you want to deal with the creaking that you've got in your joints, here's what you need to do. Actually just move. Maybe address this. How, if I just simply applied what you just shared there, how do I move in order to get the synovial fluid to do its work without going too far? Any wisdom that you would apply there?
So basically, I mean, if we're let's talk about the knee. Okay. So you're just basically maybe like if you're sitting or laying on your back, just doing like a little heel slide, and you're just actively straightening the knee
Simple.
and bending the knee through our
Okay.
whole arc of motion. And just that movement, that joint fluid in there is sloshing around and it's bathing the tissue as you're moving it back and forth.
That's great. So you
And of
what's
course,
great, you
you'd
didn't
want to
describe this 30-minute workout. Really, it is even just simple movement.
absolutely. I mean, like 5,
Great.
10 times. And I'll have
Mhm.
people, you know, if they have some degenerative changes, some arthritis in the knees or something, and one of their big complaints is, you know, they hurt when they stand up after sitting for a while.
Mhm.
I'll tell them, well, do some heel slides. Don't just sit there for 2 hours. If you're on a trip, do 5 or 10 moving these. You know, if you have to work, okay, do 5 or 10 just heel slides. Move that joint, keep it moving. That's going to help that feel less stiff, more comfortable, and less painful when you do stand up and go on. Just keep things moving.
That's great. Well, dig into this, kind of the opposite side. Why is it that sitting seems to make stiffness worse? Is it just simply because we're not bathing those joints in that synovial fluid?
I don't think it's only that, but again, the body doesn't like to be stuck in one position. Yes, when we have degenerative changes, that synovial fluid does feel good to move it, but you know, there's some other reasons. You know, when you're sitting for prolonged periods of time, all the tissues, all the muscles around that, again, they adapt to that position. And so as they begin to kind of shorten or elongate, depending on kind of what that position it is, you know, it's going to affect that tight feeling. And then you get up and you stretch and it just feels good to stretch and move
Mm,
again.
yeah.
Our bodies are dynamic. They need to be moving around.
Yeah.
Prolonged sitting particularly, you know, the joints, they're just gonna do better when you move them. When we have more significant degenerative changes, that joint mobility becomes lessened, and so that then can become a bit of a contributing factor, as
Yeah. I
well.
could see that.
And so the joint itself is physically restricted, lacks that normal mobility. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's going to kind of exacerbate some stiffness. Again, movement's a good solution for it, but there may be some other things that need to happen too.
Yeah. You were describing that, and I'm picturing my dogs. They may sit down and rest for a long time, but it seems like, whether it's they jump up to defend us from, the delivery that's coming, but if they're getting up naturally, they're going to stretch right after they get up. And it makes perfect sense. They're doing, the kind of movement that needs to happen there. So interesting that I see that in action regularly, and I didn't quite connect it back to that. So how do sleep, stress, and recovery affect stiffness?
Well, obviously, your body heals when you're sleeping. Okay. So you need rest for your body to physically recover. But at the same time, sometimes people feel like when they get up in the morning, they're really stiff. Well, it's not so much the sleeping, but the fact that they haven't been moving. Okay. So, you know, again, that lack of movement, and it could be their knees, it could be their back, it could be their neck joints have been in a particular position for a period of time. It could be several hours. Generally, we all move around a little bit at night, but kind of depending, everybody's a little bit different. But they may feel a little stiff when they wake up. That's not unusual. Just like the dog, they get up, they move around, they stretch a little bit. Okay, well, that's maybe a point in case that we should be doing the same
We
thing
should
when
do
we get
that.
up.
Yeah,
All right. Now, with stress, you know, when we have stress, we can get inflammatory things going on in our bodies. When
worries
we
too.
have inflammation, we can get some swelling in joints.
Yeah.
So, and different disease processes can, like rheumatoid arthritis and different things like that. Again, there's more than one kind of arthritis, but when we have a rheumatoid kind of exacerbation, that then is also going to affect our joints because they're actually swollen, inflamed, hot, painful, and all that. And that could
Uh,
create more stiffness.
yeah.
Okay. So, you know, it's a little bit of a side, but stress itself, you know, we have stress that creates muscle tightness, tension that can create some stiffness. So we may feel like we don't have as much motion in our back or neck because of that. So those things can definitely affect our flexibility and
Yeah.
that stiff feeling. I think the answer is, you know, doing some activity, stretching,
Mhm.
moving to kind of combat that. So, you know, negatively, they definitely can have an impact on stiffness.
Mhm. That's great and amazing the way that do what the dog does, is kind of fitting back in. Are there any lifestyle factors that matter most for any of these things?
Well, I think people that are more sedentary, they tend to be a little bit more stiff.
As
Yeah.
simple as that. Yeah.
So just being more active in general. And, you know, activity is relative. You know, we don't all
Yeah.
have to go run in a marathon.
Yeah, yeah,
It may just be, doing laps around your kitchen, for
yeah,
some people, or standing up and sitting down 10 times or doing some heel slides. We can all affect it to some degree depending on what we choose to do. But, the more sedentary we are, there's just a lot of snowball that happens downhill physically
yeah.
when we're sedentary.
Yeah. I'm noticing just these contrary motives that are there. Like, oh no, I woke up and I'm stiff. I think one inclination is, oh, I don't want to move around because it might make it worse. But actually, that's the opposite of what I should be doing. I should be moving and kind of working that out.
Yeah, you're
And
absolutely
so, yeah,
right.
it's interesting the opposite side.
And kind of with soreness too, like that same scenario, you go gardening and
Hmm.
you haven't done for a while, the muscles are sore. And so
Yeah.
people like, oh, I shouldn't do anything
I
today.
shouldn't do that
No, that's
anymore. Yeah.
normal. Get up, move
Yes. Yeah.
around, go do it again. It gets
Yeah.
better with time. You just got to kind of get body used to it.
So good. All right. Well, let's kind of, you've already pointed us in this direction towards some of the healing type things that we could do, but what are some simple things that people could start doing today if this resonates with them?
Absolutely. Moving, just moving. I mean, it could be simple as walking. It could be simple as, doing heel slides or just some general gentle movements of the
Hmm.
shoulders, the wrists, the hands, and the normal movements that joint that you're just to talking about or involve just, through that normal range of motion that it's got, moving it around. Obviously, walking could be great. It could be like biking, swimming, just very simple things. Move it or use it literally. Certainly, strength training to a degree, stretching, certainly, all those things would be good. And it's certainly important to just kind of like we talked about with it. And I've been there, you garden real hard for a day and then Saturday you're really sore Sunday morning. But consistency, it's something that needs to be done on a regular basis, 3, 4 times a week. You're doing this, that's going to be great. You're going to get effect over time as you just persist doing it. Maybe not 7 days
Great.
a week, but maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You do three or
Yeah.
four, you're going to be amazed what happens in 6 weeks.
I'm curious how you would address this. Is there a habit or an activity that's kind of the biggest bang for the buck that you would point people to? Or is it really age and stage relative?
I would say not necessarily one that gives you the biggest bang because it's very much individual in the sense of different people have different issues going on. But I mean, if I could choose one thing, if I had to choose one thing, I would probably keep it as simple as just walking because you're getting a lot of movement in your arms, not enough in your arms for full shoulder things and
Yeah.
movements, but you're moving your hips, you're moving your legs, you're getting your butt muscles working. You're doing
Hmm.
a lot of things. I mean, walking's a great activity to start with.
Is.
Fairly
Hmm.
low on
Hmm.
the impact, fairly low on the cardiovascular, but it's a good start.
Yeah. What about time frame? Like how long again would be a good aim? Somebody who's just starting.
Somebody that's just started, well, I would also say it would depend on their overall fitness level.
Hmm.
If you're just starting walking, but you have no other medical issues or anything like that, well, maybe they can tolerate half an hour
Hmm.
versus somebody with like asthma or chronic
Hmm.
bronchitis or emphysema. And, 5 minutes, they're gasping for air.
Great.
Very
Yeah.
different picture.
Yeah.
So it's going to really depend on kind of medically what you got going on
Yeah.
and just kind of your overall fitness level.
Okay. Well, you've helped normalize stiffness, help us to kind of see how it fits into life, helped us to understand how to be able to activate the kind of natural WD-40 that we have in our bodies. Is there a time where stiffness should raise a concern for somebody?
Yeah, definitely. Stiffness is painful. That can be a problem. Stiffness that persists and actually limits the ability of a joint to move, i.e., maybe like the shoulder, where we're getting stiff in the shoulder, we can't reach up overhead. That's a
Yeah.
problem, both
Yeah.
functionally and oftentimes because of pain due to a frozen shoulder. But there's other things
Yeah.
that can cause it. So that loss of function, certainly, stiffness is just getting worse and worse and worse over time. Stiffness is with swelling that could potentially be a
Mm,
problem. I would say those are probably some of the most significant things in relationship to stiffness.
okay. Is there a certain point when someone should seek evaluation?
Well, if it's
When
not
any
going
of those
away, I would
triggers go off?
Yeah, if it's not going away, if it's more swollen, I'll associate with the stiffness. If you're losing function, man, yeah, those are big trigger. Those are red flags that you need to go get something looked at and get some help with that. Because the longer it persists, several things could happen. It could get worse. It's frequently going to take longer. And sometimes there may be more significant things going on causing that metabolically that need to be addressed as well.
Well, closing question, place for you to kind of just drop some practical wisdom for us. If someone's feeling stiff every day, what would you really want them, hope for them to do? And I guess to know, to do and to know. So there's some
Yeah.
active activity on the other side.
I think the first thing I would say is there's hope that you don't necessarily have to have a lifetime of stiffness.
Good.
Okay. That you can improve with time. And maybe you need a little help. Maybe you Google something, or maybe you come in for a little help, or you see a doctor. I mean, there's lots of
Yeah.
different variables, but I would want them to know that there's hope for them, that they can do something to impact that. It may be really simple. It may not be some really complicated, difficult, or even a painful thing to address. But I would also say sooner is better than later. Just starting to handle it early on, much more successful, much easier. And make sure that don't let it limit your lifestyle. Don't just assume that I'm
Good.
older, therefore I must be more painful, more stiff, more so
Yeah.
and so. Not necessarily the case. You fight
Love it.
against that idea. Don't just accept it as that's how it is as I age.
No, I love it. Well, if you're listening and you can relate, feeling stiff doesn't necessarily automatically mean you're getting older. Getting older doesn't mean that have to deal with stiffness. It's just your body asking for movement, for strength, and for attention. And so I hope that you're encouraged today. You can find out more about our resources and services at vancept.com. And you can find more podcast episodes just like this at podcast.vancept.com. Thanks for listening in today. Take care.